Alright, family. We back in business. Make sure it's working the way it should. We can keep this party going. Okay, there we go. That's a little too loud. Okay, hold on. I forgot to do something. Be right back. We are young. We are free. Listen, I was watching this show. I was be trying to find shows to watch. So I started this show, Dairy Girls, which is interesting. I mean, I was hoping it would be close to Pen 15, whatever that, Pen 10, something like that, but it's not. I'm not saying it's bad, but I just started it, so I don't got a full opinion of it. I'm trying to make sure I don't watch all of One Piece, knock all that out, but anyway, it's this song I like, All Right. I can't even remember who sing the song right now, but it definitely is like a British song. I don't know. It's not American. I can tell you that for sure. But I felt like I'm the only person that listened to that song. I probably still am the only American, but I felt like I'm the only person to listen to that song. And they played it in the show. So now that I heard it, it is stuck in my head, you heard? Welcome to another episode of Soul Swami Live. This is Thursday Night Book Club. If this is your first time here, I am Anthony, otherwise known as Soul Swami. And what we do here is to create a safe space for a collective energy for healing, which means you can be surrounded by individuals that are also on their path of evolution to become the best version of themselves. We have a show on every Tuesday and Thursday. Our Tuesday show is all information about healing, whether it be live reading, energy readings, homework exercises, interviews, all different things that surround the idea of us becoming the best version of ourselves. And this is Thursday Night Book Club, which is in an effort to allow us to be able to connect with our inner child through allowing somebody, by having somebody read to us. I'm excited about that. I'm laughing because I've been losing a lot of weight purposefully, but I'm thankful for that. So yeah, it's pretty good. And almost a month has been 10, 11 pounds, something like that. So generally we start every show off with a little bit of energy work. And this week we are on our third eye, or our intuition. The element for that is light, and the color for that is indigo. So, if you are into color therapy, whether you want to eat some food to that color, wear some clothes, or double up and use the indigo light to be able to support the energy of your crown, you can do that. Your crown is the energy point for your intuition, your vision, your perception, and astral travel. That is the ability to visualize things in the future or using your memory to travel in the back where it's so surreal and so realistic that you can hear the sounds and smell the smells of a moment in your life or even further. Excuse me. I have curly eyelashes and they be shedding all the time. If you are into aromatherapy, you want to think rosemary, cedarwood, clary sage, and patchouli are all good for that. And if you are into crystals and gemstones, you want to think labradite, purple fluorite, sodalite, and amethyst, which we have all over this place. Amethyst is everywhere. And all those are good for your intuition. The next thing, okay. I can do that. It's interesting. The next thing we do is a little bit of sound therapy. I play an instrument, and this week we doing the bowl. My spirit didn't really feel connected to nothing else, so we're gonna stick with what's normal. Then after that, we do some breath work and some affirmations, and then we get to reading. Hey, Liberty, and welcome to 70-80% vegan life. 70-80% vegan life. You're yep. I was curious though. Now I'm glad you're here, so I'm just gonna ask you, and it don't got nothing to do with nothing, but do you take iron pills? I mean, that's TMI, but pray for me. I know that's right. Hello. Oh man, never mind. You're not gonna find it funny, but I might send the video to you. It's extra hilarious to me because I know the language. But I was scrolling through TikTok, and they had this video. It said how Yoruba people sound when they talk, and dude just like Muse, okay Muse, and I cracked up laughing, and even the Yoruba people commenting were laughing, but I was laughing because I could relate, because me, being as smart as I am, took Yoruba for my foreign language in undergrad. And it does sound like that a little bit of the boop boop. They got a whole lot of boop 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 boop. So I was cracking up. Even though the only thing I can really remember is Mogobo Yoruba. But see, all that Mogobo Yoruba. So when dudes like Mogobo bo 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 bo, I was tripping, so forgive me. The talking drum. What? What is you talking? Oh, the bo 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 bo. So when I see the video again, I'm gonna send it to you, but you know. All right, so when I play the bowl, all you gotta do is just try to relax your energy and shift from the energy of the day to a space where you can be comfortable and relaxed and enjoy being read to. This is a great show for headphones. Because it allows you to really enjoy the voice and tempo. And oh, you seen the Yoruba one? Because I done seen a bunch of them. I'm glad you seen. Oh, that's why you said the talking drum. Hey, listen, I talked to some people. Okay, so I learned a little Swahili. Unko Sikelele, Matu Patamura. They don't have all that. They don't have all them bees. Throw them bees on it. So when I saw that, I was cracking up. Like I said, even though I only think I remember I said, and that's not a sound, but when they get to flowing, it just sounds like all bees dropping bees. As a matter of fact, it sounds like the African version of blood talk. You know what I mean? Because I always whatever I think about blood talk, I always think about what's that show with Issa Rae, or well, I don't know what her name is, but anyway, she had that name Insecure. Thank you, you so helpful. God bless you. Insecure. But she had that neighbor that was blood and everything. He wouldn't say no C's. So that fool talk about he gonna teach his baby. He like, we about to go in here and practice our ABBs. Hella bees going on. I'm sorry, I'm tripping. All right, we supposed to be relaxing. I'm in here jonesing. Okay, here we go. Relax your energy, family. And think about not what visual, but what breathing exercise you would like to do when we finish this. Take your time. Start of a romance. Could this be start of a romance? What's come over me? Start of a romance. I could believe it. No. Start of a romance. Hey. I almost said your real name, but I know you go by teacher. But hey, teacher. Thanks for joining. We just read tonight. You need to join one of my Tuesday shows when I'm trying to sound smart. But thank you. And I miss you, friend. I swear. It seemed like it's been forever, but I do. No lie. I don't know. The universe need to allow us an opportunity to be able to reconnect and say hello. I don't know how that's gonna happen. I'm traveling a little bit next month. I think I'll be in scratch. I know I'll be in San Diego for about a week, and I'll be in some. I'm assuming it's kind of rich because I just look for food and they don't have no cheap food. Everything's expensive. But some place called Marco Island, Florida, something like that. Yeah. Next, we are going to do a breathing exercise, a breath work. I am feeling like 444 popped in my mind first, so we're going to do box breathing. If you are unfamiliar with box breathing, it is very simple. It is you breathe in for a 4 count, you hold for a 4 count, and you exhale for a 4 count. But during this time, the only thing you really have to do is just focus in on your breathing and shifting your energy and listening to the sound of my voice as I guide you through this breathing exercise. On the count of 3, we will start with box breathing. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 4, 2, 3, 4. Release 4, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in 4, hold 4, 2, 3, 4. Release 4, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 4, 2, 3, 4. Release 4, 2, 3, 4. Last time, family. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 4, 2, 3, 4. Release 4, 2, 3, 4. Next, I want you to repeat these affirmations after me. These are words of affirmation that will allow you to energize your intuition and energize your trust of self. You incorporate them into your routine as a source of stability and to help you remain grounded. Repeat after me. I trust my intuition. My imagination is powerful. I think clearly. My third eye sees all. I trust my intuition. My imagination is powerful. I think clearly. My third eye sees all. All right, family. We're about to get started on our book. But before we do that, this is your weekly reminder that you can support your channel and support the channel and your own evolution by purchasing the 7 Spaces of Healing. This book will help you be able to conceptualize 7 spaces that you need to cultivate within inside yourself and make sure that you become a part of to help in your evolution. That's a space for love, healing, solitude, trust, risk without judgment, accountability, and forgiveness. All very important to the evolution of you. Also, I guess I'll share with you over the weekend. I did some. I went to a stone show and I got a few things. So I've been wanting some obsidian. So I got me a nice little obsidian rock. Boop, 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 boop. I wonder how much this is. I'm going to weigh it. Obsidian, black obsidian. It's good for root. I didn't really have any stone that was good for your root. So I got that black obsidian. And then I also yeah, okay, that makes sense. Purchased a mystic quartz, which is this ring. Mystic quartz surrounded by clear quartz. All good for quartz is very good. Clear quartz is very good for all your energy points, but it's also good protection stone. And mystic quartz is just razzle dazzle version of that. So it's fantastic for those things. And I can't remember where we are in the story. We somewhere. Of course, that makes sense. We are somewhere. What? Oh. Waze is working hard. Tell me it's the police over here. The feds. I'll be fresh as heck when the feds watch. So. But I'm so crunk on the side note, man. I've been pacing myself. But I'm glad they did One Piece. Ironically, I really didn't get into the One Piece anime. But I do like live action, right? And I'm thinking I'm laughing because it just kind of hit me that maybe one of the reasons I like live action, because they take it from a video game, they take it from a comic book, they take it from a cartoon, they turn that thing into live action. They got a chance to get me. And I'm thinking that might be partly because I always enjoyed the theater. And ironically, not going to watch theater as much as I enjoyed being on stage. Okay, so Apollo just got out of jail. He just got released. He was in jail because after his wife beat him up and they don't know what necessarily happened to the baby, he went to her job with a pew pew and kind of held the women there hostage. But they knew he was frustrated, so when he went to court, they spoke for him. He didn't get much time, maybe 2 months or something like that. But he's on his way home to the well. He'll be on his way home in a minute, but he's on the way to the drop-off spot where they let the new releasees, parolees, or whatever their situation is, go. The crack of dawn. Apollo arrived at Bennett Park and didn't even realize how he got there. It had been 5:30 in the morning by the time he reached Washington Heights. His body had become used to sitting at the park with Brian at that hour. So even after months away, that's where his body took him. He had an appointment downtown at 11, but that was a long time from now. It is. He entered the park and saw the tops of 4 men's heads gathered in a semicircle by the play structures, and he came out of his hazy state and nearly turned away. He'd been meaning to go to the apartment, hadn't he? But then they saw him. Just a quick glance from the two of the new dads, and Apollo didn't know what to do. How much weirder would it have looked if he ran away? So instead, he moved towards them. They were still his friends, of course. He should say hello. He quickened his pace and almost fell as he reached the playground gate. When he entered the gate, the four men turned and watched him. To a man, all of them scanned him and abruptly looked away with embarrassment. Apollo saw this but tried to unsee it. The mothers were nearby at the swings with their kids, exactly as they had been 3 months ago, except today his hands were empty. He carried nothing. He had no child. He moved toward the other fathers, and probably for the first time ever, he shook each man's hand. Then he turned to the playground equipment. "Hi, Megan," he said. "Hi, Imogene. Good morning, Soji. Good morning, Isaac." Apollo grinned at the other dads as four kids ignored him. "Imogene is walking so well," Apollo said. Normally her father would have taken the opportunity to explain exactly when she'd made the progress. More than likely, he had 10 videos of the early tries. He should have already had his phone out for the other dads to see, but this morning, he didn't do any of that. He registered Apollo's words with a nod, but then merely blinked at his daughter, looked dazed. All four of the men looked stunned, in fact, disoriented. They stole the quickest of glances at Apollo, then immediately looked away, at the children or at the trees or Fort Washington Avenue, anywhere but back at him. Apollo understood this was happening, but he felt addled too. That's cute. He didn't know why he'd come, and now that he was there, he didn't know what to do with his hands, didn't know what to say. Should he keep commenting on the kids and their progress, or should he explain where he'd been? Did they know? Did they want to know about the bullpens on Rikers Island? About his morning shifts on the grounds crew? Of course not. Of course not. But what should he talk about instead? He should leave. They talked about the only one thing here on the playground, and he didn't want to talk about that. He couldn't. But before he turned to go, it came up anyway. "Apollo," Isaac's father said quietly, "we all felt terrible when we saw the news." The other three fathers nodded, but still refused to look at Apollo. "We wanted to get in touch somehow, but none of us ever traded numbers with you." Apollo almost melted with relief. He took out his phone, but had no charge. Rikers Island wasn't in the habit of sending prisoners home with a full battery. It was just an automatic gesture. "I'd like that," he said. None of the new dads spoke. Instead, Isaac's father put a hand on Apollo's shoulder and patted it gently. Then he moved, so he stood beside Apollo. Soji's father then moved alongside Isaac, and in an instant, the semicircle of fathers formed a barrier that blocked any view of their children. "You shouldn't be here," Imogene's father said. The man opened and closed his hands, the fingers turning tense as claws. "You're mad at me?" Apollo said. His heart beat more rapidly than it had ever been on the first night at Rikers. "You're mad at me," he said again. "No one's angry," Isaac's father whispered. "I'm angry," Imogene's father said. "I'm angry you came around our kids." Apollo tried to speak, but only stammered. He had the impulse to smash his phone into the side of the man's face. "I would never hurt your children," he whispered. Soji's father looked over his shoulder, catching some movement with his practiced parent eyes. "Did you snatch that from Megan?" he asked. "Give it back. Give it back." Megan snatched back whatever that had been, and Soji grabbed at it too. The pair of them screeched as they scrapped. The fathers of both kids turned and rushed in, a tactical support team. This left only two of the fathers with Apollo. They watched him nervously. "You're scared of me?" Apollo said. "You went to the library with a gun," Imogene's father shouted. It sounded that much louder because of the earliness of the morning. "I was trying to," Apollo began, but stopped himself. "We're really sorry about Brian," Isaac's father said. "I can't tell you how sorry." Hearing his son's name uttered out loud made Apollo's stomach quake. He hadn't spoken the name since being handcuffed by the police 60 days ago, but in his mind, His heart, he'd been repeating it 1,000 times an hour. It sounded strange in another man's mouth. Apollo had the urge to tear out his tongue. We're just trying to be good dads here, Isaac's father said. I was too, Apollo said. He turned to leave Bennett Park, 6 in the morning, and no choice left but to go back home. Chapter 33. You got to wake up. You can't sleep here. Had Apollo fallen asleep? Surprising, he'd only meant to sit here in the basement of his building in the laundry room for a little while. He'd figured he'd go wait the time out until his appointment down here. He entered the elevator and planned to go up, but instead of pressing the button for the 4th floor, he went down and promptly dozed off, it seemed. Get up, the man standing over him said. You heard me. How'd you get in this building? Not only had Apollo gone to sleep, he'd bedded down on the laundry room's couch, nuzzled in it like a tick. He'd curled up on the cushions, his back to the man now jabbing him with the broom handle. He rolled over and sat up. It's you. The super of the building, the man who hung the door on Apollo's apartment, stepped back and gawped at him. He held a broom in one hand and had the length of green garden hose coiled in his left shoulder. He had the air of a Sherpa, experienced and impossible to ruffle. His name was Fabian, a man in his late 50s, born in Puerto Rico, keeping this building running since long before Apollo and Emma moved in. He lowered into a crouch and tilted his head as Apollo watched. They did a real good job on your eye, Fabian said. Apollo reached up to pat his cheekbone that had been reconstructed. It would have been better to leave the damage visible. At least then his outside would match his inside. When I found you, it was all not good, he said, tapping his own cheek. I never got to thank you for that, Apollo said, hand still on his face. Your mother thanked me, he said. Then he heard how it sounded, like a joke boys played with each other. It does. Your mama thanked me. I mean, I seen her around here while you was locked up. She stopped me and gave me a hug. Bought me a tall boy, too. My mother's been here, Apollo asked. My mother brought you a beer? Fabian rose and with his free hand helped Apollo up. You got out fast, Fabian said. Rikers Island like to hold on to people. My mother got me a lawyer, Apollo said. Good mothers are a gift, Fabian said, tapping the bristles of the broom against the basement floor. Then he looked up, face flushed. Sorry, I didn't mean... Sorry. What time is it, Apollo asked. Just talk about something else. 10 o'clock, Fabian said. You got your keys? You need me to let you in? I still got my set. Apollo pointed to the brown paper bag on the floor by the couch. My things are in there. I can get it. But he wouldn't have to. He had an appointment at 11 downtown with his parole officer. Another strange thing to be thankful for, but still was how he felt. Was he supposed to wear a suit to his first meeting with his P.O.? Would it matter if he wore the clothes he slept in, clothes he'd been arrested in? Fabian nodded and turned away. He had an office down the hallway past the washers and dryers. He made it 5 feet before Apollo called out to him. How did you know, Apollo asked. Know what? How did you know to come to our apartment? Fabian turned back but didn't move closer. He adjusted his shoulder so the hose wouldn't slip down his arm. The man in number 47 called me, he said. There was a smell. He shook his head. It was a very bad smell. I never smelled nothing like it. Apollo placed a hand against the couch for balance. A smell, he repeated. I thought I would need my keys, but the door wasn't locked. It was real hot inside. I shouted a few times before I came all the way in, but I had a bad feeling too. He lowered his head and scanned the floor rather than meeting Apollo's eyes. I found you first. Your eye was hanging out. Fabian made a fist and dangled it by his cheek. Then I went in the back and I found the baby. Okay, so in the show, they don't say the baby just disappeared. The building's boiler far off in another corner of the basement rumbled. Apollo and Fabian remained quiet. Apollo wanted to ask Fabian what he'd seen in that room. No matter how horrible it might have been, this man had been in there with Brian. Apollo didn't want to know a single detail, and he wanted to know all of them, both feelings at once. But how could he ask? What would he ask? What might he say that wouldn't seem awful and ugly and perverse? He felt the gaze of new dads even from there, and his body flamed with shame. I said a prayer right there, Fabian said. When I saw him, I said a prayer for him every week at church. Apollo nodded. Thank you for that. I say them for you too, Fabian pointed towards his office. I gotta go, he said, though his words were choked. He was about to cry. I know that's right. I couldn't imagine going in and seeing nothing like that. It'd be forever etched in your mind and heart. Chapter 34. Yeah. Apollo reached 79th Street slightly early. The building sat on kind of a block made for movies about Manhattan. On a broad street with a grand view running west all the way to the Hudson River. Apartment buildings only 20 or 30 stories high, small and homey by the standards of the island. It took a lot of money to make Manhattan feel quaint. And amid all of this sat a Yorkville branch of the New York Public Library, an elegant townhouse and a New York City landmark. Apollo stood in the middle of the sidewalk staring up at the building like the worst sort of tourist. Old men gave him their elbows on purpose. Mothers used their strollers as steamrollers. He couldn't believe he had been here at all, but the Manhattan District Court mandated this visit as a vital aspect of his parole. The event space at Yorkville branch in the basement was billed as big enough to seat 72, but capacity wouldn't be tested this evening. 12 men and women sat in chairs that had been placed in a circle. Only one of them noticed Apollo approaching, a tall woman who waved him closer. She had the casual authority of a school crossing guard, used to helping the vulnerable and confused reach safety. This is funny that he said that, because when I would coach teachers or give them advice, that's one of the things I tell them. Like, so let's say your kids is playing in the classroom, and now you need to get them all to the carpet, or you need to get them to the bathroom, or you need to get them anywhere, and they all over. I would always tell them, you go stand in that space, and you will be like a beacon of light for the direction that they need to go, instead of standing somewhere, like standing by the bathroom, like, I need you to go to the carpet. You go stand in the carpet, and you're like, come on, guys. So I like the way that he said, helping the vulnerable and confused reach safety. Because if you didn't do that, them babies was definitely getting lost on the way to anywhere in the classroom. He reached the circle. The others looked at him as he said, I want to welcome you to the survivors, said the tall woman as he took her seat. That's what we call ourselves. Apollo looked from one person to the next. Court-ordered group therapy. That had been a condition of his role. Thank our progressive new mayor, the judge had told Apollo, unable to disguise his disdain. Apollo stayed quiet as the other survivors spoke. It felt a lot like an AA meeting, or what he's seen of AA meetings on television and in the movies, and more than half of these folks seemed to be struggling with some kind of drug. But instead of stories about excessive and ugly things that they done under the influence of this or that, these people were caught in a loop of tragedy. Something terrible happened, but for some reason I'm still here. That might as well have been the subtitle of every conversation. Soon it seemed strange to call this group the survivors. They were here, but none of them had survived. I'm still wearing my wedding ring, Apollo said, sounding surprised. He looked up at the dozens of others in the seat. Now they stared at his hand too, and he held the ring finger up. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't mean to say that out loud. Alice, the tall woman, leaned forward. That's fine. Don't worry. My wife was a librarian, Apollo said. Why was he talking? What was he saying? An older guy with a gray beard nodded. I saw that in the news. Apollo sat upright. You knew about that? Why didn't you say anything when I sat down? The old guy crossed his arms. I had a few problems. I had a few problems of my own to talk about, you know. Apollo actually laughed, a quick, sharp sound. But now the floor is yours, he added softly, more kindly. This is my first time here, Apollo said. I got released from Rikers Island before the sun came up this morning. I met my parole officer this afternoon, and I had to wait 2 hours before he saw me, and now I'm here. They watched him quietly. He found each one inscrutable as a statue of Buddha. Alice said, your parole officer made you come here on the same day you were released? His parole officer actually encouraged him to go home, take a shower, and get some rest, but Apollo asked for help finding a meeting right away. He didn't do anything to avoid stepping back into his apartment, but how could he explain all of that? Yes, Apollo said, he's an asshole. A few of the survivors tutted and chuckled. The guy with the graying beard gave Apollo a faint nod that interpreted as, fuck the police. The younger woman spoke haltingly. Why did she do it? Did she explain? Apollo turned to her startled. Had they all known what had happened? It's not a baby. No, Apollo said. She didn't explain. But why didn't you do it? Alice asked. This question, the pleasant air of crossing guard had dissipated. You talking about the library? Apollo asked. Yes, I am, she said, leaning backward slightly, crossing her arms. I lost my mind, Apollo said. I didn't understand what Emma had done until I came out of surgery at the hospital. I was lying in my bed and watching it on the news. That's how I found out. The apartment is still considered a crime scene, so I wasn't allowed in. I stayed at my mother's place after I was released. When I felt strong enough, I went directly to the Fort Washington branch of the New York Public Library where my wife worked. It was a Thursday. They didn't open till noon. I got there by 11, when I knew the other librarians would be inside preparing for the day. As you probably also heard in the news, I had a shotgun with me. He had been forced to recite the events of that morning with his lawyer a few times, and then in front of the judge and the prosecutor as well. He never stood before a jury, though. He felt as if he was doing that now. I had her work keys, and I let myself in. I found 2 of the 3 librarians on the first floor. We had to wait for the third to come from using the bathroom. Were they scared? Alex asked. Of course they were, Apollo said. Now, she looked down into her lap. I don't think I was making much sense, Apollo said. It took a while for me to speak clearly, to tell them why I was there. The early part of the day was when I shot the ceiling by mistake. Somebody outside heard it, which is how the police got called. Then me and the 3 librarians went down into the basement. I took them down there. We spent the rest of the time locked in the reading room. A woman got out of a seat and left the circle. She practically sprinted from the basement. Okay. When I came out the hospital, the big story was already about a hunt for Emma Valentine. The FBI and NYPD were on the case. They both came to me and asked for information that might help catch her. Maybe they'd already been to the library and spoken to all 3 of those women. But the women obviously hadn't told them what they knew, what I thought they knew about Emma. Who else would they have spoken to? Those librarians were her family. Her own parents were dead, and her husband and child meant nothing to her. I couldn't get a hold of her sister, so I showed up to ask my own questions. I was sure Emma had told them something that could help me track her down. And had she? The guy with the gray beard asked, leaning forward in his chair. No, Apollo said. They swore to it again and again, but it still took me 6.5 hours to believe them. At the end, I gave the shotgun to Carlotta, Miss Price. I turned myself over to the police. All 3 women testified on my behalf. They refused to file any charges against me. That's the only reason I got out as quickly as I did. It was incredibly forgiving of them. The younger woman who'd first spoken said, "Do you think your wife is still alive?" "I hope not." He looked at her, then realized how it must have sounded. "I mean, the FBI and the NYPD haven't found her yet," Apollo said, "so I don't know." But what were you planning to do anyway?" The young woman continued. "If the librarians had information, if you had found your wife." "She killed my son," Apollo said. "If I had found her, I would have killed her, then myself." Apollo couldn't think of what else there was to say, so he said nothing. The survivor sat in silence. "Okay," Alice finally said. "Thank you all for coming. Time's up." I know. What do you say after that? "Thanks, Cuzzo. I seem to like. I appreciate you stopping through this book club. You gotta stop through on a Tuesday where we gaining some more perspectives and tools to help with our own evolution to the best version of ourselves, right? Chapter 35. He stayed at the Yorkville branch until they closed their doors at 7 o'clock. He spent those remaining hours on the main floor in the chair near the checkout desk with a magazine in his lap. It hadn't been comfortable to tell the survivors about what he'd done, but right after the group session, he felt even worse. At least down in the basement, he'd been among others like himself. The guy with the gray beard had been on his phone texting when he'd rolled into the intersection and his car got smashed by a moving truck. His fiancée was dead before the car had stopped spinning. But after all of you have shared, shouted, or cried, then what? Then it's just Wednesday evening and you're back on your own. 6 months of that? No fucking thanks. But if he didn't go, he'd be back on the bus to Rikers and there'd be no quick release date to secure. So he sat in that chair for hours trying to talk himself into tolerance, tenacity, and recovery. Finally, he had to face it. He had to go to the apartment. Still, as he reached his block, as he approached the building, as he entered the elevator, he kept expecting someone to leap out and stop him. No one did. He reached the front door of his apartment and hesitated. He slid the keys into their locks. Apollo opened the front door. He expected a noise when he walked inside. Not really. But then, why did he feel surprised by the silence? Maybe because it had been so loud the last time he was in here, 3 months ago. Only 3 months. He entered the apartment and shut the door behind him. He stood in the darkness and slowed his breath. Even with the lights out, he could see the wooden floors were clean, supple and almost wet looking. He walked into the living room and stood there in silence. More space, more quiet, no life in here at all. But there was the couch, where it always had been, under the living room window, the lamp in the corner, the low bookcase, the radiator. Even the radiator didn't make any noise. It must have been shut off. The bedroom he'd once shared with Emma lay to the left and the kitchen to the right. He went into the bedroom door and opened it, half expecting to find Emma in there, a fugitive hiding in plain sight. But of course, he found only their bed, the sheets made, the floor just as clearly swept and mopped. The curtains had been left open, and he looked down to the street below. He watched a man trying to park his car in a space that was obviously too small. When Apollo left the window, the man still hadn't figured that out. He entered the kitchen. When he looked at the floor, he saw the pellets of rat poison. When he looked at the counter, he saw the claw hammer. When he looked at the oven, he saw the kettle, the fire underneath it making the bottom glow, steam spraying from the spout. He saw it there, but he couldn't hear it. It rattled on the stovetop, but there was no clatter. He brought his hand to the cloud of steam, but felt no heat. He backed away from the phantom teapot and shuffled his feet to avoid the pellets he thought was still on the floor. But when he moved to the kitchen table, When he looked down at the chair where he'd been chained, he saw no ghostly repetition of the scene. No chains, no blood. He pulled the chair from the corner. The hole in the floor had been repaired. He got down on his knees to check. Lillian had done all this. Who else would have bothered? It was in this position, still on his knees, that he turned to face the back room. The door had been shot. A neon green sticker was affixed to the door about a foot above the handle, half of the door and half of the frame. He crawled closer. His legs trembled too much from the stand. This premises have been sealed by the NYC Police Department, pursuant of Section 435 Administrative Code. All persons are forbidden to enter unless authorized by the police department or public administrator. Even now, in his mind, this remained Brian's room. He put his hands to the wall to press himself up. He didn't want Brian to see his father crawling. Eventually, this room would have to be open too, but not tonight. He thought that being in here, in this place, at this door, would cause an instant avalanche of emotions, but instead, he felt quite the opposite. He felt nothing. He couldn't even tell if his heart was beating in his chest. Apollo lumbered into the bathroom. He hadn't taken a shower long in 6 days. 60 days. He ran the water and removed his clothes. He spent half an hour under the spray before he even started cleaning himself. When he finished, he made it to the bedroom. He hadn't slept on a good mattress in 90 days. The one in the hospital had given him an ache in his lower back, but he couldn't make himself lie down in the bed that he shared with Emma. He stripped off the comforter and the top sheet and went back into the living room. He plugged in his phone, then he laid down on the couch. He looked up at the night sky. Through the windows here, no stars. What now, he asked. He fell asleep long before his phone rattled and lit up. In the dark, it shone brighter than a star. Then after a moment, it all went black again. Chapter 36. Patrice stood in the doorway of his basement apartment in Southeast Queens. The owner of a 2-story home had decided to make a little extra income, something to help cover the mortgage. She'd had a basement converted into an apartment and rented it on the sly for $1,300 a month. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen and a bathroom, a private entrance at the back of the house. Patrice lived there with Dana, the woman he'd met after he returned from Iraq and his marriage fell apart. Patrice leaned out the doorway and sniffed at Apollo. It's the Birdman of Alcatraz. You're late. With friends like these, who needs enemies? They don't give you no break, right? Dude called him the Birdman of Alcatraz. I had to take the train and a bus to get here, Apollo said. I forgot that Queens was this far from New York. Patrice waved one big paw. We started eating without you. I brought wine, Apollo said, lifting a brown bag. You brought wine from a place that doesn't even give out plastic bags? Apollo had to smile. It felt good to see this guy again. Behind Patrice, a woman. Dana called out. Why don't you let him in rather than standing out there putting all our business in the street? Patrice looked over his shoulder. Baby, our interest is on the side of the house. Most we're doing is letting the neighbors get a look. Come inside. The ceiling down in the basement felt low to Apollo, and Patrice had to be 6 inches taller than him. The wood-paneled walls sucked up the ceiling lights and made the whole room darker. Listen, my aunt in New York had a basement apartment, and them wood paneled walls, Jesus Christ, they is giving me flashbacks. Do you hear me? Flashbacks. The kitchen and the stove both had to be 10 years older. The best item in the kitchen was the dining table, beamed in from crate and barrel, aspirational furniture that took up too much room in the cramped kitchen. Dana had set the table elegantly. A red gingham check tablecloth, and a rattan placemat, blue gingham check napkins, and white porcelain plates with silver trim. As Apollo entered the kitchen, Dana was already setting out the exact same arrangement for him. Once Apollo shut the door, a passerby would never know or probably even imagine that inside of a basement apartment in Southeast Queens there lay such a beautiful appointed dinner. It was like catching a glimpse of the glittering soul inside a rumpled passenger on a subway train. Apollo lost his breath before that, for a beat. Dana took down 2 wine glasses after Apollo revealed his bottle. They owned only 2 wine glasses. She gave Patrice a coffee mug for his wine. "I'm sorry I'm late," Apollo said. Dana poured the wine. "Nobody wants to come this far out in Queens. We're just glad you made it." Dana hugged Apollo. She had big arms, big legs, a broad back, and a perfect body for hugs. Where Patrice's hold had been wary, Dana's offered only warmth. A baby's funeral had happened while Apollo sat on Rikers Island. Both Patrice and Dana had attended the ceremony. The way she held him out, the long, slow warmth of it, conveyed her condolences better than any words she could have said. "You sit," Patrice said to both of them. "I'll serve." Dana patted Patrice's belly before she took her seat. "He acts like he's being gallant," she told Apollo, "but he just wants to be sure you know who made the meal." Dana worked for the Port Authority as a senior toll collector at the Bayonet Bridge in Staten Island. It was an hour's drive from their place in Queens. On the days when Patrice went to the book buys in Jersey, he'd drive her out and pick her up again in the afternoon. They had a good thing together, and both seemed to know it. Patrice slipped the ladle from the drawer. "Crock pot chicken," he began. "Chicken legs and breast, half a jar of pitted olives, 3 teaspoons of olive brine, 1 lemon cut into slices, 1 teaspoon of herbes de Provence, a cup of chicken broth, a half a teaspoon of salt, an eighth of pepper." Patrice dipped that ladle into that white crock pot on the kitchen counter, and the rich smell of brine and lemons made Apollo lean forward as if the food was already in front of him. "And 1 bay leaf," Patrice added as he filled the first bowl. With the low ceiling and the close walls, he looked like a brown bear doing the cooking show inside of a cage. "I can't believe you're living in a basement," Apollo said. Dana sucked her teeth. "What's wrong with living in the basement? I found this place for us." Apollo looked at her and smiled, but Patrice is terrified of, and caught himself. He looked back at Patrice, who stopped moving mid-serve. Apollo could see Patrice watching him, even as he pretended to be playing host. Right? Dana clearly hadn't been told about basement, made Patrice quiver, but just as much of a surprise, Patrice really thought he kept this secret from Apollo too. Once we would have passed this off as a normal way of life. People tell little lies to get by. But now Apollo couldn't brush off the untruths as benign. If our relationships are made of so many small lies, they become something larger, a prison of falsehoods. Patrice is terrified of commitment, Apollo offered, an old chestnut and truism about men, an idea so blandly conventional that to say it was like casting a kind of spell. They were no longer sinking into the depths of this issue, but merely skating across a slick, thick surface. Chatter. Sitcom humor. Dana visibly relaxed in her chair. Maybe before, but then he met me. And just like that, the moment passed. Patrice brought the bowl to Dana and kissed her forehead as he sat down. He looked at Apollo quickly and then went back to the counter for Apollo's bowl. After they finished the food, Dana and Patrice cleared the bowls, the utensils. Apollo pushed back from the table. "I want to show you something," he said. He opened his bag, set down his phone. Lena had been trying him since yesterday, Must have been 15 phone messages from her. She wanted to take him out to Brian's gravesite. That's tough. He should see his son's final resting place. But when Apollo woke up from the couch that morning after his first night home, he'd also found a text message waiting. Right after he read it, he called Patrice and Dana and asked if he could come over that night. Out of his bag, he brought a smaller gift bag, one bought at the Dwayne Reed on 181st Street. Dana and Patrice had cleared the table. Dana wiped down the surfaces with a wet cloth before Apollo laid out the present. "Take a look," Apollo said. Patrice opened it while Dana went on her toes to see. "To Kill a Mockingbird," Patrice read. He opened it and scanned through it like a pro. Book jacket is fine, boards too. End paper's clean, and it's the first shit. "You found this at the estate sale on Rikers Island?" Dana reached for the book, but Patrice closed the cover and held it tight. "Look at the title page," Apollo said. Both read quietly. Dana nudged Patrice. "Who's Pip?" Patrice shook his head, but he couldn't bring himself to say he didn't know. He tapped the bottom of the page by the author's signature. "I do know who this is, though." "I drove up to Connecticut today to pick this up," Apollo said. "The guy sent me a text to let me know it was ready. He'd been writing me for weeks. I guess he doesn't watch the news. The appraisal certificate is folded in there." "This is some shit you retire on," Patrice said, "or at least go on a good damn vacation. Where'd you find it?" Apollo swayed a bit, but set his hands on the table. "It doesn't matter," he said. "I found it, and I want you to have it." He didn't let them interrupt. "I planned to sell that thing and have enough money to buy a place for me, Emma, and Brian. But that's done now. All done. I don't care about money. I wouldn't use it." He stopped speaking right there, his throat clutching. He didn't want to finish the sentence in front of them. Dana put one hand and said, "We'll take it." Apollo and Patrice both gawped at her with surprise. Her eyes were wide and she seemed just as taken aback. She slipped the book from Patrice's hands. "It's generous of you," she said softly, "and we appreciate it." Then she turned and left the kitchen, escaped to the back room, their bedroom, and shut the door. Patrice watched after Dana as if trying to catch up on an equation she'd already solved, but sighed as he failed. "I guess that's good night," Apollo said. When they were outside climbing the back stairs, Patrice said, "You know why I always liked you? Why we became friends?" "I'm a better bookseller," Apollo said. "You wanted to learn from the best." Patrice raised his eyebrows. "Even you can't believe that. First time I met you, I think of it was West End Bar, back before it closed. Rich Claflin had a bunch of buyers out for drinks. I told you I was just back from Iraq, just like I told everyone at that table at one time or another. And you know what you said?" Apollo gently tapped the aluminum siding of the house. "There's an estate sale in Pennsylvania. You in?" Patrice shook his head at the memory. "You never said any of that thank you for your service shit. You never asked me if I was against war. Never asked me who I killed. You basically act like you ain't give a fuck. And I like that. Right then, I knew you were a dude I could be normal with. Not some vet. Just Patrice." He slapped Apollo's leg once so Apollo would look at him. "And I'm going to break protocol and talk straight as I ever have to you. Okay? If you go off and kill yourself tonight, I'm going to soak that valuable fucking book you gave me in the toilet. Then I'm going to piss on it, and worse, that will be my revenge against you. I will ruin that book." "What are you even talking about?" Apollo said, not very loudly. Patrice put a big mitt on Apollo's shoulder, then lowered his head so they faced each other, square. "I've seen that look before." "What look?" Patrice watched Apollo. "This one. The one staring back at me right now. I've seen that look, and I know." He squeezed Apollo's shoulder tight. "I know." Apollo yelped and pulled free. He hadn't been planning anything like that, had he? Now he took 2 steps backwards and turned. Had he? He walked around the side of the house and toward the front gate. He heard Patrice behind him. "You're a bookman," Patrice said at the gate. "So tonight, I'm going to put that book online. And if you're not here around, you'll never find out exactly how much someone would have paid for it. You will never know." Patrice stood at the fence, him on one side and Apollo on the other, clearly calculating whether he should tackle his best friend and put him on suicide watch. "You're a motherfucker," Apollo said, "but I do want to know what it's worth." Patrice pointed at him. "My man, I'll be calling you as soon as I hear. You be alive to pick up." I know that's just right. That was a tough part on the show. It was tough because he definitely had that look. I'll read one more chapter when we get out of here, family. Chapter 37. Oh, it's night. It's dark. Apollo returned to the apartment after midnight, and when he opened the front door, he heard someone in the kitchen. This hiss and this tick, tick, tick of an oven burner being lit, and he had to grip the front door's handle so he wouldn't fall to the floor. The kitchen light had been turned on. The rest of the apartment stayed dark. He listened to a pot being pulled from the cabinet, water rushing from the tap. He almost turned and ran, but instead, he closed the door behind him as quietly as he could. He slipped his shoes off and moved his socked feet across the floor. She was back. Maybe she'd been coming back to the apartment for all these months he'd been at Rikers. Maybe it had really been she who'd cleaned up the place just as clear away the evidence. Maybe she felt guilty. She just couldn't help herself. Apollo slipped into the living room. He could hear the quality of the oven's flames. Changed the pot or kettle was placed on the burner. He smelled faintly ginger in the air. In the darkness of the living room, he could almost see his breath as faint cloud of blue electricity. Every sense became more finely tuned as he approached the threshold of the kitchen. Emma would be in there reenacting her crime, and this time he would find her, and they wouldn't speak to each other. They would tear each other apart down to the atomic level, a little nuclear fission in the kitchen, nothing left of them but the silhouettes of who they used to be burned into the wall. "Apollo, is that you?" "Mom," he said. He walked into the kitchen, swatting the air, his confusion swarming him like flies. Lillian Cogwa stood at the refrigerator, holding a quart of skimmed milk. "I'm making tea," she said. Apollo looked at the oven just to find a small pot of milk bubbling. The leaves were already inside, and small strips of ginger, too. They boiled, and the level rose above the lip, and Apollo did just as he had learned when he was a boy, turned off the flame before the potion spilled over. With the heat off, the tea settled again, steaming and spinning, a rich brown color. "Well done," Lillian said, standing beside him. She had a teacup on the counter and a sieve. She strained the tea and set the pot back on the oven, picked up her cup, and took one long sip. "Why are you here?" Apollo asked. "It's the middle of the night." He pulled out a chair and sat because he felt unbalanced by his confusion. "It's 12:20, she said, standing over him. She'd always liked to have her tea on her feet, the habit of a woman who had to rush to work in the morning. How was dinner with Dana and Patrice?" she asked. Apollo looked up at the ceiling light. "Dana called you?" Apollo said. "She went into the bedroom and called you." That's what she did. She went to tell his mama on him. "I know that's right. Hello." She did quick. "I was surprised that you had been out and seen them before you saw me." Apollo shook his head and laughed. "Please tell me you're not guilting me right now, Mom." She sipped her tea. "What guilt? Do you feel guilty? Why didn't you call me to pick you up, though?" "Too early," Apollo said. "I didn't want to wake you." Lillian took down a second mug and poured Apollo a cup of tea like hers. 4 a.m, she said. "That's criminal. Let me make you something to eat." "I just had dinner with Patrice and Dana," Apollo said. In the time it took him to complete the sentence, Lillian had already opened the fridge and removed half a carton of eggs, an onion, a block of cheddar cheese, sour cream, and a bag of semi-sweet chocolate chips. A selection strange enough that Apollo wanted to make a joke. That I definitely was thinking that if somebody cooked, none of that goes together. But as she removed more items from the fridge, tangerines and cherry tomatoes, he realized how anxious she must be. They'd seen each other at his trial, but hadn't been allowed to talk. He called her from Rikers once, but this was the first time they'd ever been in the same room since then. I'm happy you're here, Apollo said. I'm happy to see you. He stood and shut the fridge door gently. The two of them stood close and looked at the things she'd laid out. What was I planning to cook, she asked. Let's just have tea, Apollo said, guiding her to the chair he'd vacated. He sat next to her, and neither spoke as they sipped. He felt sure he looked older than her. It seemed important to comfort her, to soothe any fears she would have. In a way, it felt good to have someone to care for. You need sleep, Apollo said, and I do too. She brought her hand to her chest and patted it softly. I was asleep when Dana called. I go to bed early most nights. You in Springfield Gardens, he said. How'd you get here before me? Lillian gave a smile. Her purse sat on the table. She reached for it, unzipped the top, and took out a phone and swiped once on the screen. She held the phone towards him. I called an Uber, she said. How much did that cost you? He'd taken that scolding tone adults do with their elderly parents. Lillian's face flushed, and she set the phone down. I called an Uber, she said. And now I'm here. Let's leave it at that. They finished their tea and put the food back in the fridge. None of this stuff looked rotten, so Apollo realized Lillian must have brought it all recently, restocking his fridge for his return. Good mothers are a gift, he thought to himself. I called the police once a week until they finally told me it was okay to enter your place. Your super Fabian? He let me use his keys. The police dug through everything, went through all the closets and dresser drawers. I didn't want you to come back and find the place a mess, not with everything else. Lillian washed the cups and cleaned the pot. Apollo told her to take his bed. When she protested, he explained he couldn't sleep in it anyway. I'd offer to buy you a new bed, she said, but that Uber ride took most of my savings. Apollo laughed, and the sound turned a valve in Lillian, and she laughed too. They went to the bedroom, and he pulled back the sheets as if he was about to tuck his mother in for bed that night, but she grabbed his hand and shook it. Tomorrow morning, she said, I want you to come and see Brian's grave. We can bring flowers. Brian's grave? 2 words, and suddenly Apollo felt like the one in need of tucking in. Nassau knows, she said. It's in Port Washington. It's a beautiful location. Mom, he whispered, I'm not ready for that. She pulled him down next to her on the bed. She held his hand in both of hers. Let me tell you a story. Apollo pulled his hand away. You're not going to tell me about Arthur getting shot again, are you? Ugandan dictatorship. You drove like crazy, but he still bled to death. You came to the United States. Immigrants are so amazing. You make America great. I got it. Lillian rubbed her thighs. That's not what I was going to say. What then? Something else. Lillian stood up, slipped off her shoes, and set them by the bed. She gestured toward the door, and Apollo dismissed. She closed the door, and Apollo remained on the other side until he saw the light go out under the door. Did he want to apologize? No, he did not. He wanted to say more, to say much worse. He wanted to do something worse, not to her, to himself. Patrice had been right. If his friend hadn't said something, who knew where he would have gone next? The George Washington Bridge was a block from his apartment. Every 3.5 days, somebody attempted to jump the waist-high handrail. Maybe tonight, it would have been him. Apollo thought of giving Patrice and Dana the book. Had been a selfless gesture, but If possible, he couldn't be trusted to understand himself right now. What would he have done if Lillian hadn't been there? He didn't know, and that surprised him. Who was he now? What might he become? He'd always been so sure, a bookman, a husband, a father, but now none of those roles seemed to fill. All right, that was it. Boop, 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 doop, doop. So, family, we'll pick up where we left off next Thursday. Catch us Tuesday as we continue. No, I forgot what we're doing tomorrow. Next Tuesday, we on Law 12, and I can't remember what it is because we just did the Law of Polarity on Tuesday. So we'll be doing something. Catch us Tuesday and enjoy our conversations on the 12 universal laws to help you understand how to use the energy within yourself and around you to help you shape your optimisms, your way of thinking, and your energy going forward. If we don't see you here Tuesday, I hope you come back Thursday as we continue reading Changeling by Victor Lavalle. Appreciate your time and effort. Don't forget to purchase the 7 Spaces of Healing, available on Amazon now. And before we go, I want you to remember that you can trust your intuition. Your imagination is powerful. You do think clearly. And your third eye sees all. I appreciate you, family, as always. And I hope you have a fantastic weekend. And I look forward to being back with you again next week. Thank you for all your support. Thank you for your time. If you're going to pay something, I'm glad you decided to pay attention to this, family. And with that, I say, peace, family. Till next time.